Okay, and so just like we did the first side, I'm going to go ahead and stitch right along this line, only in between the pleats. You can go ahead and sneak the knot behind here, but again, this isn't going to necessarily be seen. I know I just told you how I like to hold it, and I'm kind of doing the opposite of how I like to hold the fabric. But as the fabric has kind of gotten smaller, it's harder to hold. So I need a little bit more fabric than my hand space. Go. I'm leaving my pins in as I come up to them sorry, I keep pulling it back. As I come up to them for the pleats, because I don't want the pleats to move. Just a little bit further. No, it's fine. It's a little harder to stitch where all the folds are, so keep that in mind as you're stitching. You have to push a little harder. You can use a thimble if you find that easier. Push it through the multiple folds of fabric. Go for it. I'm so close, but I don't have enough thread, so I'm gonna have to do another needle. No biggie. Double knot. Go ahead and backstitch twice to start, just like before. Oops, looks like I changed it to a stem stitch again. So focus on your stitches so that they are the stitches you intend. They need to be a back stitch again here so that you have that security. Keep those pleats in place. And then at the end, back stitch twice. And then double knot. Perfect. So now we have our pleats stitched in place and we don't have to worry about them slipping. Our next step is going to be to sew our channels onto our mask so that we create a little channel to encompass it. So what we'll do, see how I had 4 inches and the mask is just a little bit smaller than the 4 inches when it's all folded up. So what we'll do is go ahead and start pressing so that all we have to do is fold this over and stitch it on. So what I'm going to do, knowing that I'm going to encompass all of this edge of the piece, what I could do is quarter, quarter, and then quarter, quarter. You can eyeball a quarter, so it should be about a 1/4 inch on either side larger. If it's not, go ahead and line it up against the side that you're going to stitch it to. Easy. Do the same for the other side because you want the ends to be nice and clean. Fold this in a 1/4. Again, if you want to mark your 1/4 to fold, you can. You can eyeball it. This is just to encase the edge. And then a 1/4. So now this piece will stitch along the edge like so. And we can do a decorative stitch here. So if we want to do like a cross stitch along this edge, if we want to do a chain stitch, we're welcome to do that. If we want to do a stem stitch, a split stitch, we want to have a minimum of a back stitch, but you want to have not a running stitch to sew this piece to here. And we have 2 options. We can either sew one side on like so, and then fold it and sew with the decorative stitch, which might be, if you are worried about control, might be the best way to go, so that before you sew in this decorative stitch, you can go ahead and either feed your strap through it, like so, and stitch it down, or you could feed your elastic through it, or if we line this up perfectly, like so, we can feed the strap and elastic in afterwards. That's going to require feeding it through, which you might find is a bit challenging. So you have a couple options for your next step. If I were my half elastic, it would be here. I could try to do all of this in one step and have this already here. And what I would do is I would sandwich all of this together right over. So I'm just going past that seam line that I stitched and pin it, which I'm assuming most people will do because of, it'll be one last line of stitching, be just as secure, and it won't take that much, it'll take less time than if we were to do the stitching twice. So let's move forward like this. So I have my piece. I'm going to stitch through all these layers. All these extra threads from my fabric, because it cut edge with woven fabric. Sometimes you'll have the yarns come undone. That's fine. So with all of my pieces together, you might want to use a thimble. If you don't have a thimble, you can use the blade of your scissor to push the needle through if it's too thick. If you have your ruler, you can use your ruler to push it through if it's too thick. I think I can do it without, so I think you can try and see what works best for you. So just like before, I'm going to hide the knot behind one side. So I have this side pulled back a little bit, and I went through 4 layers, and I'm going to stitch up and down this whole thing. For more exact stitching and for a perfect clean line, go ahead and draw on your line with pencil if you'd like to have your stitching really nice and perfect. This will be the only seam that's exposed for this piece. Go ahead and go around twice just for extra security. Not quite a back stitch. You see the yarn got a little, or the thread got a little tension issue. So play with that, get that nice and secure. And then I'm going to go ahead and back stitch. So down through all these layers of fabric. Double backed again. Extra security. I would try to keep your seam line for all of these pieces about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Again, you'll have the cleanest piece if you draw a line. And I just want to show you construction techniques because you have options as far as what stitching you want to do here. So as long as this fully secured, sandwiching through all the pieces. You'll want to have more consistent size pieces. That stitch was much too long. I looked away for a second and that was no good. So the other side will be much cleaner. Like so. Like so. Again, don't do stitches too long. Remember, in class I demonstrated with much shorter stitches. And you want to control your stitches so that they're nice and clean, because this is the only side of the mask that's going to be seen. The only stitching on the mask that's going to be seen. Like so. I'm going to go ahead and knot it, do my next stitch. My stitches are way too messy for this. I'm just running out of time to make this video, so I apologize. I'll be much neater on the other side and use that as an example. But I wanted to make sure I made videos with the whole, how long it takes to do the whole thing, so that you understand the time investment in just the making of the mask part. And then you can think about how much time that takes compared to how much time you want to put into your messaging or the character you're adding to the mask. So starting that knot behind. And when it's multiple pieces of fabric, it takes a little bit longer. So like I said, you can use your blade to push the needle through. You can use a ruler or any other hard object if you find that it's too challenging. If you have a thimble, this is when to use it, if you need it. And I'm kind of embarrassed at how messy these stitches are, so. There we go. Just over the top, like so. One more time. And then put my knot back here. Do. Always double knot. Looking at this, personally, I would cut this out and do it all over again, or leave it in and then re-stitch it so that it's nice and secured, because I don't like these stitches. In fact, I will probably do that before class tomorrow. So for my other piece, just like with this side piece, and what's nice about these channel, like I said, you can change out elastic if you find another elastic that you like. You can change out your ties. You could change your ties to elastic or elastic to ties. So you have some options. So just like before, for the other side, what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold, we're gonna line it up and see how we can make fold edge be the same length as the mask. So fold it in on either of the long edges. And then I'm gonna eyeball a 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. And then I will press this in half, and perhaps this will be, and I'll use more pins stitching this side on so it's nice and clean. So again, I had the option, if I wanted to, I could have stitched this on this way and then gone and wrapped it around and stitched the second end. The hesitation to do that is that you'll have so much thread here, it'll be even harder to stitch through, because you'll have a layer of thread that you'll be stitching through as well. So I'm going to have my piece like so. I'm going to sandwich my mask in to it. And I want my edges to come over those stitches I did to secure the pleats, like so. So it's over this edge on both the front and the back. Great. Go ahead and put my strap in there. Fold it. It's a lot to control, so if it's too much to control, feed your strap in afterwards. Pin it. Pin it. And I'm making sure these line up perfectly. These line up right on top of each other. And like I said, I was really unhappy with my first set of stitching, so I'm gonna just add a couple more pins to make sure that these are laying flat on top of each other. What's also nice about the pins is it's keeping the strap held in place in the back, so I don't have to worry about it coming under my stitches and being stitched in as well. There we go. So for my next stitch, and since I want the front to be a clean back stitch, I'm gonna go ahead and start like I have before with my knot behind folded layer. This time I'm gonna try to do it a 1/16 of an inch. that. And I'm going to look back and forth in between each of my stitches to make sure I'm happy with how they're lining up. It'll take a little bit longer, so this will be the longest stitches for the project for your pleated mask. But it's important to make sure that your stitches are nice and clean, the visible ones at least. Like so, double that back stitch. And then I'm going to move forward. Making sure, take this pin out, check that when I push this down through here, yeah, that looks much better. And then I'll just go in here. My stitch is nice and clean. And then move forward. So then this will be a stem stitch on the front and a back stitch on the back. Lined up nice and clean. Flip it around. If you want to do a little cross stitch all the way down, think about how much thinner the threads are that you're using. And so perhaps you'll want to do smaller, finer X's. Or you maybe want to do larger X's. Just think about the thread width and such. I want to keep the thread tension nice and even. Starting to slip around. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Again, I'm flipping it back and forth this time so that I'm lining it up each of my stitches so it's exactly where I want it, so it's a super nice clean stitch. Ooh. And this is why you don't want your thread too long. I tried cheating and doing an extra long thread, and now I'm paying for it with little tangles. Go. Still perfectly aligned. And then I'll move forward. Same with the chain stitch. If you want to do a decorative chain stitch down the seam, think about maybe making smaller little chains so that, because the threads are thinner, or think about using more threads. If you do use more threads, like you did your 4 layers of floss, 4 threads of floss, think about how much more challenging it will be to move extra thick thread, like lots more thread, through many layers of fabric. So just something to consider if you're considering moving. So this is heads and tails better than my first side. And it's not taking much longer. I'm just taking the minute to flip it each time and checking where my needle's coming up on either side. When you have so much extra fabric, so much thickness of fabric, sometimes just that little extra step is all you need. Look at that, nice and clean. So like so. Looking good. Getting to the end. You might find it easy to line up your stitches also if you draw a line on both sides so that you know exactly where you want your needle to come out. There we go. Finish it strong. I stitch around the front like so twice. Stitch around twice. Over the top. There we go. Now I just need to knot it. I don't have a lot of thread, so I'm going to try to move that knot up to the top like so. And there we go. We have our pleated mask. So again, you can choose which way you want to wear it. Whatever feels most comfortable on your face. So, nice clean line of stitches, nice clean line of stitches. Okay. Chaos. So yeah, that's how you do it.